Welcome to the University of Nottingham and to the Department of Theology and Religious Studies. This is another film in the Sacred Calendar series, and today I'm joined by Professor Tom Loughlin of the University of Nottingham, Professor of Historical Theology, who is going to talk about Easter. So Tom, what's important about Easter?
The standard way you have to begin to talk about Easter is to say that Easter is the most important festival for the Christian year. And then usually you add that it is far more important than Christmas, even though Christmas is the one that there's more hullabaloo in the marketplace about Christmas than there is about Easter. Think about Christmas parties, Christmas cake, Christmas tree, lights in the streets, all the thing. Easter, chocolate eggs, a few days off, a couple of bank holidays. But to say that it's the central festival in the Christian calendar fails to realize that it is also the central event in the way Christians remember. Christians don't just remember this person called Jesus. They remember Jesus as the one who died and rose. To acknowledge Jesus is to acknowledge the Easter Jesus, the Jesus who has conquered death. It is the Jesus of Easter Sunday. And the whole of Christian faith is formulated on remembering Jesus who rose. And when we read the Gospels, even though we read things that happened before Easter, we read them in the light of Easter faith because they were meant to preach Jesus as risen. So you're reading the Gospel of Matthew, you pick up the 5th chapter and you hear of Jesus going out and going up the mountain and sitting down, and he opens his mouth and gives out what's called the Sermon on the Mount. Well, that's not a philosopher sitting down and saying, well, here's some ethical teaching for you. The way that Matthew intends you to understand that is, you believe that Jesus has risen, and this is part of the preparation that helps you to understand what it is to believe in the risen Jesus. So Easter is not just an event, but it is the focusing event for understanding Christian faith. And as the focusing event, the celebration of Easter each year is, as it were, refocusing and recentering on this as the central belief event. Easter, of course, originates because Christianity emerges as a strand within Judaism, and the whole history of the Jewish people is, of course, that Pesach, Passover, is a central event. And so Jesus and his fellow group of Jews, they were celebrating this, and they were celebrating in a particular way. They were celebrating it in Jerusalem. And that tells us a lot about the way Jesus is thinking about Judaism and the way he's thinking about himself and his movement. He's celebrating Passover not just anywhere, but he makes a definite decision. He will travel down to Jerusalem. He will celebrate this in the city of the great king. He will celebrate it in this central place where God is present to his people. So there is a group, this first group of followers, and they're celebrating Passover, Pesach, what Greek-speaking Jews at the time were already calling Pascha, just changing the sound slightly. And it's then that he's arrested, the trial takes place, he is executed on the cross on Good Friday, and then the veil of history draws over. There's this gap, and then on Sunday, the community believed that he conquers death. So Easter becomes central and becomes a great festival, already inheriting the meaning of a festival within Judaism. So what memories did it inherit? It inherited primarily the notion that Passover is the liberation of a people. So then Christians take over and say, well, Easter is the liberation of the people by Jesus. So Jesus becomes liberator, deliverer, healer, and the key word that's used in the tradition is Saviour. So to celebrate Jesus as risen is to celebrate Jesus as Saviour. Then it takes over another meaning. To become a Christian is to enter into the life of the risen Christ. This is this encounter with the risen one. St. Paul says, well, where do we encounter this? Well, we encounter it in dying and rising with him in baptism. So Easter then takes on a meaning of being the time of baptism. So Easter remembers what happened in Jesus, but it also becomes celebratory of baptism. And this continues still today. The strand has continued on. So Easter is the ideal time for new Christians to be baptized. But if new Christians are to be baptized, then they have to have a preparation. So Easter becomes the conclusion of preparation. And so you have to have a period of preparation. You get the idea of Lent. So Easter then becomes the completion of Lent. And then if you're going to celebrate the risen Christ and see Easter as the encounter with the risen Christ, you become aware of your own imperfections. Oh, well, if you're going to encounter the risen Christ, there must be a period of penance. So preparation for baptism becomes period of penance. And so Lent is as it were, the spring cleaning for celebrating the risen Christ. So when we say Christians celebrate Easter, and Christians celebrate Easter as the central event and the central celebration, it's multi-layered. There's umpteen levels of reflection and tradition involved. It's a historical encounter, obviously, in that it's recalling that the events, this key event at the end of the life of Jesus takes place, but it's then the celebration of encounter here and now. It's the celebration of baptism and that's encounter. It's the period that concludes preparation. And then it's also the celebration of Jesus as Saviour. Now in the West, we tend to think of resurrection as life after death. But actually, the understanding is slightly different, but it's a crucial difference. It's the celebration of Jesus who is the victor over death. If you want to understand Easter, there's a very famous Latin hymn that runs something like this: life and death fought a duel. And this duel ended in an unusual way. The duel ended in life conquering death. We expect that whenever life encounters death, that death somehow has the last laugh. And so the confession of Jesus as risen is the confession that death is not the final word, but that because of Christ, life conquered death, and therefore Easter becomes the centre of the notion of Christian joy. So, what are Christians celebrating? They're remembering the past. They're remembering the first times, the times of Jesus. They're looking forward to their own final resurrection, a future event, the encounter of their conquest of death, their entry into new life at the end. And right now, between the Alpha and the Omega, they are engaged in the encounter with the risen Christ. Being a baptized people, Easter is encountering Jesus who is risen, the one who has conquered death.
Thank you, Tom, for providing us with a very multi-layered account of the meanings of Easter in your answer to my question. and happy Easter to you.
Thank you, and happy Easter to you.
And happy Easter from us at the University of Nottingham in the Department of Theology and Religious Studies.